Welcome to the History AI podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Welcome, history aficionados, to another episode of the History AI podcast. I'm Chuck, the guy who reads too many old newspapers and gets excited about handwritten letters from the 1800s.
And I'm Marco, the tech enthusiast who's convinced that the past can be relived through virtual reality headsets. But today, no headsets needed, folks, because we're diving into the life of a real-life hero without any augmented reality gimmicks.
That's right, today's episode is dedicated to Bruce Kingsbury, or Kingy, as his mates used to call him. We'll walk you through his life, his battles, and the legacy that he left behind.
And speaking of battles, Chuck, I heard you fought quite a battle with the printer this morning trying to get our script out.
The printer won, mate. But unlike me, Bruce Kingsbury knew a thing or two about winning battles. So let's jump right in.
Born on the 8th of January, 1918, in Melbourne, Australia, Bruce Steele Kingsbury was your regular Aussie bloke. Wasn't he, Chuck?
Regular? More like remarkable. Bruce grew up during the interwar period, a time when Australia was grappling with its identity post-World War I and dealing with the Great Depression.
Must have been tough. And family history, Chuck?
Well, Bruce came from a line of hardy stock. His father was a World War I veteran. I can imagine young Bruce listening to his father's war stories, which might have sowed the seeds for his own sense of duty.
Do you think he liked Vegemite as a kid? I feel like that's a rite of passage for all Aussie legends.
Well, he definitely developed a taste for adventure, if not Vegemite. He and his brother Jack actually went on a motoring adventure to Sydney in 1936. Some say those travels instilled in him the resilience he'd later be known for.
Now, Bruce wasn't just any other lad with a penchant for adventure. He was also a talented sportsman, right?
Absolutely. Bruce excelled at cricket and Aussie rules football. His athleticism no doubt contributed to his later prowess in combat.
I bet he bowled over the competition.
Literally and metaphorically, Marco.
Let's get a bit serious here. Bruce decided to fight for reasons that many young men of his time did.
Indeed. The spectre of fascism was casting a dark shadow across the world, and Australia was part of the British Commonwealth, which was pretty much knee-deep in the conflict against the Axis powers.
He must have felt that pull to defend the freedoms that his father fought for in the First World War.
Right, Marco. Duty called, and he answered. Now folks, we're heading into the heart of the storm, the battles Bruce Kingsbury fought in, where his legend was cemented.
Right, Chuck. Kingsbury was no stranger to the fierce and unforgiving conditions of combat. Let's zoom in on the most pivotal battle he was a part of, the Battle of Isurava.
The Kokoda Track campaign, where this battle took place, was critical. It was 1942, and the Japanese had their eyes on Port Moresby. They planned to cut Australia off from its allies, and the Kokoda Track was their route.
And let's paint a picture here. The Kokoda Track wasn't your neighborhood jogging path. It was a brutal, unforgiving series of ridges, swamps, and jungles. Malaria was as much a threat as bullets.
Soldiers slogged through mud, rain, and against an enemy that was well-versed in jungle warfare. It was in this treacherous terrain that our man Bruce found himself with the 2nd 14 Battalion.
The Japanese had a tactical advantage early on, but the Australians, underdogs in every sense, held their ground. For days, the battle raged, with neither side giving quarter.
On the morning of August 29th, the Japanese launched a major assault. Australian positions were pounded, and it seemed like they were going to break.
That's when Private Kingsbury stepped into history. His platoon had been forced to retreat after suffering severe casualties.
With the Japanese pushing forward, Kingsbury's response was nothing short of heroic. He grabbed a Bren light machine gun and charged towards the enemy.
And mind you folks, this wasn't some Hollywood slow-mo action scene, it was chaotic, terrifying, and real. Kingsbury's charge caught the Japanese off guard. His fire was so effective, it allowed his company to regroup and launch a counterattack.
Kingsbury's actions not only stopped the enemy but inspired his mates. They saw him, a man unafraid, facing the storm head-on, and it gave them the strength to fight back.
But the victory was bittersweet. In the very moment of his triumph, a sniper's bullet found Kingsbury, and he fell, right there on the track he had defended so fiercely.
His bravery was recognized posthumously with the Victoria Cross. His citation read, "His actions were an inspiration to all," and that's an understatement.
His legacy from that battle lives on, not just as a tale of courage, but as a testament to the grit of the Australian soldiers who fought on the Kokoda Track.
Bruce Kingsbury's stand at Isurava was a defining moment in the Kokoda campaign, and in many ways, for the Australian Army during the Second World War.
It was Chuck. And every Anzac Day, when Australians and New Zealanders honour their servicemen and women, the spirit of Kingsbury stands tall amongst the legends of their military history.
A true hero, whose bravery transcends time, and whose actions on that fateful day remind us all of the incredible feats humans are capable of in the face of overwhelming odds.
We'll pause here to reflect on that heroism and what it means to fight not just for the ground under your feet, but for the very freedom we cherish.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break. From the mind behind the History AI podcast comes an electrifying journey into the past. A ripple through time, Franklin's Folly. Dive into a tale where Benjamin Franklin, America's beloved inventor, takes an unexpected journey through time. But with his leap, he unleashes a powerful ripple. Now, with dark forces lurking in the shadows, harnessing this energy to shatter and enslave the world, it's a race against time. Will Franklin fix the future? Or will history rewrite itself? Uncover the secrets. A ripple through time, Franklin's Folly. Time has never been more fragile. On Amazon now. Welcome back to the History AI podcast. We've covered the heroic life and legacy of Bruce Kingsbury, and I've got to say, Marco, this is one story that really gets you in the feels.
It does, Chuck. It's a story of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring spirit of a nation.
And if Bruce Kingsbury could see us now, making terrible jokes about his cricket skills,
he'd probably charge at us with a Bren gun.
But in all seriousness, his legacy is no laughing matter. It's one that reminds us of the best of human qualities, even in the worst of times.
So true, Chuck. We hope you've all been moved, learned something new, and felt a connection to a piece of history that continues to shape our world.
And remember, folks, history isn't just about the past, it's about the stories we choose to remember and pass on.
If you've enjoyed our deep dive into Bruce Kingsbury's life, please subscribe, rate, and share our podcast. Every bit of support helps keep these stories alive.
And if you have a suggestion for a historical figure or event you'd like us to cover, drop us a line. We love hearing from our listeners.
Thanks for tuning into the History AI podcast.
Until next time, keep the past present.